We are live.
Coaches, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, everyone. Coach Steve here. We have a fun episode for you all today. We are doing a rookie mock draft, Superflex rookie mock draft. And of course, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we have a lot of people to talk about today. And we have a big crew today with us, which is great. So let's get ready to do that. Coach Tyler, what is going on? Welcome back in.
What's up, guys? Glad to start drafting. Let's get it.
Yeah. Coach Steve, what's going on?
Yeah, man, it's great. Unfortunately, I did all of my rookie drafts already, so I could have used this practice. You know, it's kind of like I did the real thing before the actual mock, but I'm excited. There's a lot of players to talk about, so excited to get into it.
It's unfortunate. I wish I could podcast like every day from Sunday to Wednesday and make a podcast for everyone, but this is how we have to do things here when you're not full-time fantasy football analyst. So, and of course, we have our guest on today's show, someone who, we have a coach on today's show now, Coach Chase on the show here. He was supposed to join us back in April. I messed up. So I told him, you know what? I'll have to come on a fun mock draft show. So Coach Chase, what's going on, bro?
What's going on, guys? Y'all ready to kick off this mock draft show? I'm excited, man. I'm ready to rock and roll.
It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get to our mock draft show here, guys, we do have a couple of things I want to go through real quick here. There were a couple signings post NFL draft here that I kind of want to mention real quick and see if you guys have any opinions on these players here. And I'll quickly name them off. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. signed a one-year deal with the Miami Dolphins. DJ Shark signed a one-year deal official today with the Los Angeles Chargers. And Chase Claypool signed a one-year deal with the Buffalo Bills. Now, guys, do any of those guys sound interesting, whether you're talking dynasty, whether you're talking redraft this coming season? Is there anyone that you're taking a flyer on, whether you're trading for them on a low or buying them low on a redraft team? Whoever wants to speak.
I'll go ahead and kick this one off because, I mean, honestly, this goes to tell me more about the Bills than anything else. I mean, if you've been watching the Bills press conferences, right, they're super, super hyped about, Khalil Shakir. They're super hyped about the rookie Keon Coleman. They've been talking about Mac Hollins on almost every single interview. And it's like, it's Mac Hollins. We've seen Mac Hollins. We know who Mac Hollins is. Why y'all getting hyped? They bring in Chase Claypool, of course. They've got a slew. They've got like 12 different wide receivers on their roster right now. The one that they have not mentioned this entire offseason has been Curtis Samuel. And we know that Chase Claypool can play that big slot role, right? Like, we talked about it since he's been drafted that he could end up playing a tight end type position because his ability to play the slot. And Curtis Samuel, to me, it doesn't sound like things are going too hot just to see the season kick off. So for me, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on Curtis Samuel because, the lack of words might go more into the future of Curtis Samuel than what the words are telling us for these other wide receivers.
Yeah, the Bills are interesting. You're right. I mean, they have Hunter Renfrow on that roster. They signed him in this offseason. So completely random. So, I mean, that goes to your point because they play the same position, him and Curtis Samuel. The way I'm approaching it, like if I have Josh Allen in a Dynasty League, just have these guys on your roster. You don't know who's really going to emerge. They all have had success at some point in the NFL. And then, of course, they added Keon Coleman. So if all of these guys have been on a waiver wire in Dynasty Leagues, I've seen Shark, Beckham, with the draft coming in, you bring in rookies, people have to get cut. I've seen all of them on waiver wires. I don't think they really should be. I think all of them should be added, especially on deeper dynasty rosters. It really doesn't make sense for them to be on waivers.
Yeah, I think definitely, you look at the price of everyone in this receiver room outside of Keon Coleman, which we'll see today, going out and getting him in your rookie drafts. But this is as dirt cheap of a receiving core as you can find with an elite quarterback like Josh Allen. And so I think, kind of to both of the points that have been spoken on, just have them on your roster. If they don't pan out and they aren't anything in that offense, great. You picked them up off the waiver wire, you drop them back to the waiver wire. It doesn't matter. You could even pick them up and use them as trade tools as all that camp buzz starts coming out. But these guys are too cheap and tied to too good of a offense and really too good of a quarterback to not be rostered, at least to see how it shakes out, right? We see, two of the top target getters gone. Someone's got to fill that role, right? James Cook he's a fairly decent running back. I don't think he's going to touch the ball 500 times a game to make up for all those lost targets. And so someone's going to have to at least receive the targets. We'll see if they turn into receptions or not, but someone's going to be throwing the ball. And I think that it's kind of foolish not to have all these guys at least rostered if you can get them cheaply. Like if they're sitting on the waiver wire, if you can trade someone that you're planning on cutting anyways for them, go after it, right? And one thing that I really do like with the Chase Claypool signing, as the resident Houston Texans fan, if you noticed rosters and numbers, the Buffalo Bills gave Chase Claypool number 14. So if you can go get Stephon Diggs right now, he's going to be playing with the biggest chip on his shoulder because they just gave a bum his number right after he left. So go buy up Stephon Diggs where you can.
Oh, God.
I will say that Chark is the most interesting. I mean, I just traded away Josh Palmer a few weeks ago, and someone was telling me, oh, man, well, you just traded away the Chargers wide receiver 1. I was like, okay, let's see. They drafted McConkey. They signed Chark. I mean, that's just how it happens. I could see Chark being like DFS player of the week 1 sort of thing.
Yeah, Chark is definitely interesting here. The only guy that's really safe in this offense is Ladd McConkey, like, in my opinion. I mean, this is an offense that Quentin Johnson didn't play well in last year. Well, I guess it's a different offense, right? But for the same quarterback, he didn't play well last year. It's almost like the biggest question mark offense in the entire NFL is like, what is this going to look like? We know that Harbaugh wants to run the ball. We know they're going to go with a lot of 2 tight end sets and big personnel packages, right? So we might not even see 2 of these wide receivers on the field at all times, whether it be Quentin Johnson, DJ Chark, Josh Palmer. We really don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I do know that there's one guy safe, and that's Ladd.
Yeah, no, I like all the signings. I feel like they're potential big up plays. If you could get them on waivers, I still think Chark and Claypool are still more on waivers now. I'm sure by the end of the week that probably won't be the case here once rookie drafts finish and everyone's evaluating their teams. I got Odell like everywhere this past couple of days. I overspent on my fab, but I don't care. Love me some Odell down in Miami. Just in a general sense, like I don't think he's going to be anywhere near a weekly starter every week, but there's definitely going to be some big weeks where I feel like he will get involved. Hill and Waddle have had dealt with their injuries throughout their career. And Odell might find himself opportunities at times to get into the starting role at some point. So if you can buy low on any of these guys, it would probably be a better time to probably sell high if you don't believe in their talents and you think they're going to just kind of fade her out by the start of the season. Great time to sell high on a 3rd round pick for 2025 or whatever it is. Probably a 2024 4th or 25 4th for like Claypool or something. But we'll have to wait to see with any of these guys here. So, all right. That's about the news I want to give out today, guys. We're going to get into the mock draft now. I try to see if I get anybody else in here. It was just us. It's fine. It's no big deal. So we're going to go through it. We're going to break down this mock draft here, kind of talk about overall our picks, where we see some picks. We'll kind of go round by round. We'll pause. We'll take a look at the round and kind of talk about it, and then we'll get through this quickly as possible. Again, this is super flex, regular non tight end premium, anything like that. It's just a regular super flex. Half-point PPR, if you want to say, kind of league here. So we're going to start the clock here now off the bat. And my volume off here. All right. So obviously the first pick went Caleb Williams here. Superflex league. That's kind of a very obvious choice for a lot of people here. But again, it might not be. So we're going to start with Coach Steve and his first round pick. He went the 2nd overall pick here. So go ahead, Steve. Talk about your pick. You're on mute, my friend.
Head coach Steve, can you mute the sleeper sounds?
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
I
think it's the bell. You're good.
The bell.
I just had the same thing happen to me. Luckily, I was muted. So big brain.
Nothing's better than the wow. You guys remember that from last year? I don't know if they still had it. I didn't hear it yet.
Got to be trolling like us fantasy football podcasters, right? Like,
yeah.
Caleb Williams, yeah, that's the obvious 101 here. For me, Marvin Harrison is the 101 in a lot of cases, even though it's super flex. So I take him always at that 102 spot. I really haven't had the opportunity, unfortunately, because I usually don't have high draft picks. So I figured, hey, might as well just take the opportunity here, go and put myself here, get Marvin Harrison. Because to me, it's a great example of just the talent being so much more valuable than just the position, even though we know that the quarterback position is very important in Superflex. So at this point, I think, Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison 101 is 50-50.
All right. Okay. After that, Jalen Daniels went off the board. And then Coach Tyler, you had the 104 here. Who did you go with when at the 104?
Yeah, took Malik Neighbors at the 104. It was really between him and McCarthy for me. We've talked about the McCarthy landing spot and kind of what we need to see out of McCarthy to really believe in him and all that he's supposed to be. But I think that Neighbors, he's just going to get force-fed the ball. Like, there's a lot that's missing from this Giants offense, and I don't think that he's going to be, the key piece to them going to win a Super Bowl this year. But he's a great building block for, Daniel Jones. We'll see what Daniel Jones is coming back this season. But at the same time, there's a chance it's not Daniel Jones next year, right? They were linked to multiple quarterbacks throughout this season or throughout this offseason in terms of possibly signing guys, possibly bringing guys in the draft. So I think that there's a bright future for Malik Neighbors in terms of who's throwing him the ball. But at the same time, if you're giving me a guy who's constantly been comped to be the next Jamar Chase, and you can get me a 25 to 30% target share in his rookie season, sign me up for it. I think that he's going to be a great building block in terms of a receiver. I think he's going to continue to work his way up dynasty rankings. And as much as I hated the landing spot, seeing him there, just the amount of volume that he's going to get really just pushes the needle over for me.
I like it. Following pick at pick 5, Rome Odunze off the board, pick 6, Drake May. And at pick 7 here, Coach Chase, would you go with here at pick 7?
I like that sound, Coach Chase. I like it. I'm rolling with it. No, I actually have McCarthy above Drake May. I think that he's set up for success more than Drake May. And it's not that I don't dislike Drake May. I just hate seeing quarterbacks be put in situations where they don't have wide receivers and they start to develop bad habits. So Drake May for me, unfortunately, is behind McCarthy. McCarthy's sitting there with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Addison. I mean, this is just sexy. This is just a sexy landing spot for JJ McCarthy. And I know that situations change, but with O'Connell there, looking like the Vikings are going to be competitors, year after year, I think JJ McCarthy is just set up to be a stud. Brock Bowers is right there with me, but I faded Brock Bowers due to the situation and just how, this whole thing is shaking out with the Raiders. It just feels like everything that they want to happen isn't quite making it happen, and they're having to go for backup plan after backup plan after backup plan. And unfortunately, the Raiders just haven't developed anybody as of late. And whether that has to do with the front office, with the coaching staff, or former coaching staff, that's kind of all up in the air. But I'm not going to take another shot on a tight end this early when we're seeing tight ends in the second and third rounds over the past few years be a lot more successful. Not to mention, this is probably the best the tight end room has ever looked in the NFL for fantasy football. I mean, we have 12 guys that are pretty much guaranteed to produce, which I don't think we've been able to say in the history of fantasy football. I don't think we've ever had 12 tight ends, maybe even 13 tight ends that can put up top tier numbers. It's absolutely absurd, and I love it.
Yeah, we all love it. We love more tight ends to produce for us in fantasy. We need it. So, again, following the 107, Brock Bowers went at the 108. Xavier Worthy went at 109. Brian Thomas Jr. went to the 110. I had the 111. I went with Ladd McConkey here. Again, we kind of mentioned him already in the beginning part of the show here, a guy who seems like the most safest potential option here in this Chargers offense, at least to show off an opportunity to be a long-term starter for, with Justin Herbert for a long time in the NFL here. He's a guy who's going to play in the slot. I think his role for the most part is safe unless he has a terrible training camp or anything like that off season. Like, he should almost be locked into the slot role at this point. And again, 100 targets, pretty easy for him. year one. And if he pans out, I mean, you have a guy who's in a good offense overall, who I think, while they're talking about being more run efficient this year, I think eventually the passing game will come back there in LA at some point, and McConkey is going to be a big part of that for the long term. And then the following pick at the end, round one is Jonathan Brooks here. So let's talk about round one again before we get into round two here. Chase, I'll let you go first. Is there anything in round one overall that you're like, I don't like, someone where you're probably not going to want to take them in round one, or someone that you like maybe fell besides your own pick?
Yeah, so there's not a lot of times that you'll see Bo Nix fall out of the first round. He did not make it in the first round of this one. Yeah, and then there's another case where typically somebody from pick 7 to 12 is going, or 7 to 11 or even 10 is going to need a running back, especially with the landscape and how it's kind of shaking out right now. Jonathan Brooks, I've been in probably close to 10 drafts already so far this year. I don't think I've seen Jonathan Brooks make it past 110 yet. A lot of times you're seeing BTJ fall, Brian Thomas Jr. fall to the second round. You're seeing Xavier Worthy get pushed back from time to time. Some people are reaching. And then Adunze's been falling. I don't think I've seen Adunze go 1-5 in a super flex league outside of maybe, I think, 1 or 2 drafts tops. Typically, teams are trading up to grab their quarterback in the 1-5 range or so, 1-5 to 1-7. So we're seeing the quarterbacks go a little bit earlier than what Odunze is. And then Jonathan Brooks is absolutely not making it to 112 in most drafts that you'll see.
Mm-hmm. Coach Steve, Coach Tyler, anyone else you guys want to talk about the first round? Anything you see you want to know for other people out there?
I think it's a good point that Odunze is a little higher than usual. I've seen Brooks go into the second a lot.
Really?
In Superflex, yeah, for sure. Usually, and then as soon as Brooks goes, usually the next two go, Benson or Corum, within the next few picks. So the end of the first, I think that he belongs in the discussion for sure. And I think you could argue Brooks over those 3 receivers. So yes. I don't think that it's a bad pick at all. And I think, so 112 is great value. Everything else looks pretty straightforward besides Odunze. And then I think Brooks, I guess I'm a little surprised, but not really.
Coach Tyler, anything you want to mention here in round one?
Really, Chase and Steve hit on just about everything. I think seeing Brock Bowers falling, we talked about on Thursday, we went through our receivers and tight ends and talked about landing spots and how we felt about them. And I said that Brock Bowers is a guy that's going to have to fall into my lap for me to be okay picking him. And I feel like the more he's falling down draft boards, the more I'm okay ending up there. We look at Superflex and he was going, possibly with, pick 6, pick 5, if someone was just a really tight end needy team, at least in pre-draft ADP. And we see this, and he's fallen down to 8 here with, 3 real drafters and then a whole bunch of CPU. And there's a chance he falls even further, right? I'm in a lot of leagues, being someone that has grown up and lived in Texas my whole life. I've got a lot of friends and a lot of people I'm in leagues with that are University of Texas fans. Right, so Xavier Worthy going to the Chiefs and Jonathan Brooks are going to go early, which are going to push guys like Brock Bowers down. And so I think that Brock Bowers has slowly begun to fall to areas where I'm more okay taking him, because you're sitting in the back third of that first round, and that means your team's set up pretty well, right? And that almost puts you in a position to take a shot on the talent over situation with Brock Bowers, right? And we look at that's a team that doesn't have a ton of identity, with new front office, new head coach, who was the interim coach, but they're a team with a range of possibilities. And if you can take a shot, you don't want to talk about taking a shot in the first round, right? But if you're taking a shot on this elite profile, this elite athlete that everyone's been drooling over for the past 3 years, waiting for him to get to the league, once he's in that last 30-year first round, I think he's – I don't want to say a smash.
Draft. Smash.
Yeah.
I'll say it. He's a smash.
It's getting to the point where his ADP is falling lower and lower. And if you look at how your league is set up, there's a chance that Bowers ends up in the double digits of that first round, right? And I'm taking him there happily. And so I see him dropping down to 8 and then, with a lot of computer interference there. And so there's more that he could fall. And so there's a lot of teams that are up at the top of their league that could make out like bandits having Brock Bowers.
It's a good point. And just real quick, I think if you're in between like the end of the first round, like, oh, which of these receivers do I get? And Bowers is on the board, it's probably him.
Yeah. To be honest with you, like you got to view these first round picks as stocks to an extent, right? And that's kind of how I view all players. Sorry to dehumanize them, but is that the right word? Dehumanize, but essentially they're stocks. Like they're essentially you're picking guys who will ascend in value versus picking guys who will depreciate in value. And if they ascend in value, you end up moving them and creating more pieces that could also ascend in value. So guys like Romeo Odunze, right? Like there's no really situation that you could see where he's going to be worth more than the 105, currently, right? I mean, I guess there's a couple situations. Let's just say Keenan Allen gets hurt. He ends up going over 100 targets, ends up getting 10 touchdowns because he's their red zone guy. Sure, that might happen. I don't see it happening, but it's a possibility over there. So, I mean, Odunze is a guy that I got to fade. I'm fading him to the back half, even the back third, right? Meanwhile, with Brock Bowers, I know I said that I passed on him for J.J. McCarthy, but Brock Bowers doesn't see too many routes where he's going to depreciate in value, right? Like we're still looking at Kyle Pitts. People are still asking for a first round pick for Kyle freaking Pitts, who hasn't done anything in the NFL, right? And it's finally because Kirk Cousins is coming to town. So Kyle Pitts is worth the top 5, top 6 pick in the first round. It's like, okay, that's cool. But like, he still hasn't done anything yet. He's still at the same value that he was at when he was drafted as a freaking rookie. So Brock Bowers doesn't see any kind of depreciation of value. So if you have a team where, hey, you might be loaded up, to the brim. Maybe you ended up having some bad injuries last year. You ended up having, some Justin Jefferson, right? And all of a sudden you end up not making the playoffs or you fall out early. Maybe you had a bad first round. If your team is stacked, Brock Bowers is the guy that you want to take because you know that he can only go up in value, right? Assuming that he plays decently or assuming that they get a better quarterback next year, because you can turn around and trade him and make, 3 times what you end up paying for him if he ends up having a season where he gets 6 or 7 touchdowns and 800 yards. He'll be worth, a crazy. He'll be worth the bag. Like you'll be getting a bag back for Brock Bowers when you go to move him.
And you look at it like,
go ahead.
So I mean, you look at the situation too, right? In my mind, when I think of the Raiders going into this offseason, I think of Aiden O'Connell, right? Who didn't have a great season, but he definitely surprised a lot of people from where he was supposed to be. But a lot of people forget that the Raiders went out and signed former QB1 Gardner Minshew this offseason, right?
Let's go.
And he's been a serviceable quarterback, right? He was the QB1 with Jacksonville, obviously before the phenom Trevor Lawrence got there. And then he had a couple backup stints. And then we saw last year, the Colts brought him in because they were, preparing for Anthony Richardson. And he ended up starting just about every game for that team because Anthony Richardson couldn't stay healthy. And he didn't have a bad season by any means, right? I mean, over 3,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. Like, it's not going to wow me. I'm not expecting to get a Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce relationship here. But it's not like they're just throwing out anyone at quarterback. They're throwing out someone who has been a starter in this league for multiple years, who is a pretty accurate quarterback and can make some pretty good decisions. And he's got the aura that everyone wants at quarterback, right? He's just a fun guy to watch. But Bowers isn't in, the most attractive situation. And when Chase talks about it looking like stocks, right? When his name got called, that stock plummeted. And, buy low, sell high.
Yep.
He's about as low as you can get a first-round pick right now. And at the same time, he's got some of the highest ceiling of just about anyone in the first round outside of, the first couple picks, which is where he was projected, not the first couple, but the first few picks, which is where he's projected to go before he got called to Vegas. And so I think that, people might be blowing it a little bit out of proportion, I still like to see him falling because in those leagues where I am in that upper tier of teams, especially in this draft, if I can have someone like Brock Bowers walk into my tight end room and see what he is and use him as a valuable piece, I love that for my team.
I have done like 17 leagues. I don't have a single Brock Bowers share. Not a single one. I get what everyone's saying about it, and it makes a ton of sense, but for me, it's just like you're getting Brock Bowers because you have a luxury pick, and you're like, my team is really good, and I'm like, let me just grab Brock Bowers. He's a potential difference maker. But I feel like just over the years, we've seen a lot of tight ends. Like, how many tight ends go in round one really end up producing to that elite level that we all expect? Kyle Pitts won in round one. He had 1,000 yards. That was fantastic. But now since then, we're still waiting for him to do more, and I feel like it's just never got there. Last year everyone was all in Dalton Kincaid. And didn't really do enough yet. Again, this year it might be different, but I just feel like taking the tight end in round one, I'd rather just trade for them when they start getting to that next level than take them now, because I feel like there's potential for them to really just not make that jump. That's how I see it. Like, everyone's expecting them to be the next Travis Kelce, guy who's going to have 1,200 yards and 8-10 touchdowns, but no one's really gotten to that level yet. With all these tight ends we've talked about over the years now, no one's ever gotten to that level of Travis Kelce yet. And I think that's what everyone's chasing for when they draft a tight end who has this athletic ability and pass catching ability, that they're all expecting him to be the next Travis Kelce. And he might, but I don't know.
Have you not heard of Sam Laporta, my friend?
Yeah, but you got Sam Laporta in the end of round two. You got Sam Laporta at the end of round two. At that point, that's a great value. But you're taking Brock Bowers. Again, he probably would have gone higher if he went to a different team, to the 104, 103, depending on what your value. But I feel like you're drafting him at close to near ceiling value in terms of the prospect he was.
Hey, that's the good thing about it, right? Is like, even if he's drafted the ceiling value, his value won't increase for like 5 years. It'll take 5 years for his value to drop off.
I get it though. I get it. I don't know. I just watching all these tight ends go in the first round over the last 5 years now. It's just like you're always waiting for them to do more, and it always seems to disappoint. That's all I'm saying. All right, so let's get into round two. I'll unpause the draft here. We'll keep the draft going for the rest of round two. And then in that time, Keon Coleman went at the 2-1. And Coach Steve, you had Bo Nix at the 2-2. Talk about Bo Nix. You're on mute again. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. As Chase mentioned, he did fall. So this is pretty good value just on the board. And then, of course, he's the last real starting quarterback, right? I mean, it's real similar to the NFL draft, the way these quarterbacks are kind of going, where it's, everyone's kind of trading up to get their guy, or, who the first two are, and their guy usually is May or McCarthy. And then Nix is just kind of there. He's the last one every time. I think he's going to be set up for success. I think, in the way that we view Malik Neighbors, we want the landing spot to be juicier. We want the offense to be more clear. Broncos really aren't. Last week I said the Broncos aren't, clear right now what their receiver room is going to shake out as, how their offense is going to run. Even if Bo Nix is going to be the starter day one, I believe he will. I don't think he has much competition behind him. Now, the last 2 years at Oregon, he had 2 really good seasons. The last one was insane with 45 touchdowns, over 4,000 passing yards. So, he also can run the ball. He has a 500-yard rushing season in that first year at Oregon. So I think Sean Payton's going to have some fun with that. And, I do like Marvin Mims. You got Josh Reynolds. He's Mr. Reliable. Cortland Sutton's still on the team. I don't know if he will be week one. But even if he's not, I think bringing in Troy Franklin really helps out Bo Nix. So it's going to be interesting because I think they're going to need to run the ball, kind of like how I think that the Vikings are going to need to run the ball. And if they can't, it's going to be really hard for these quarterbacks. But if you get Bo Nix, in spacing, in shotgun, with read options, and you get a defense back on their heels, that can be fun. And I think that you're looking at, like I said, a Justin Herbert light with Bo Nix. So I think the pick there is pretty obvious at the 202.
I like that pick a lot there. At the 2-3, Ricky Pearsall went off the board, and at the 2-4, Coach Tyler, that was your pick here. What direction did you go there?
Yeah, I took Trey Benson going to Arizona. We talked about with Jonathan Brooks a lot of times. We see that running back run of picks go. Luckily, we don't see it till the end of the second here after I took Trey. But, Trey Benson is in an interesting spot. He walks into a team that just got the best receiver prospect in years to add to their offense. They've got a quarterback who can be a very viable, successful quarterback, but has been kind of hammered with injuries in the past couple of years, dealing with different things, and obviously playing too much Warzone. That's, the big downfall of the Cardinals. But Trey Benson walks into a running back room where it's really him and old man James Conner, right? And Trey Benson, I think, is in a great position to set himself up to take over at least the over 50-50, the 51% of carries going into the second half of the year. James Conner, if I'm not wrong, his contract is up after this year. He'll be a free agent. And behind him, they have Amari DiMercado. Don't know why he's on an NFL roster. And I think they have Eno Benjamin right behind him. And so, these are not guys that I fear would eat into the running back competition. I don't think it would be an over committee. I think it's going to be a two-headed monster, at least to start the season. Benson, he does have, we'll say, some issues with vision. But when you get a guy that's, 6 foot, 215, who can run a 4.39, he's got that home run speed. He's got that big play ability. And you add him into this offense with a extremely mobile quarterback and a passing game that's starting to look up with the emergence of Trey McBride this past season, adding Marvin Harrison. Michael Wilson is still a guy that a lot of people in the fantasy community love. I think he's going to be a catalyst to help this Arizona offense not be terrible. And I think that his size, his speed, even if it's not this year, he's 20 years old. He might be 21 by the time the season starts. I don't have an exact birthday on me. But this is a guy that's got youth. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got the ability to make a big play happen anytime he has the ball. And I think that him going to Arizona, and especially getting him right here whenever there's kind of those question mark receivers, I'm really happy taking Benson at the 2-4 right here.
All right. I like it. All right. Next up on the board at 2-5, Michael Penix went off the board. 2-6, Xavier Leggett went off the board. And then 2-7, Coach Chase, who'd you go with?
I went with Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell. So this guy's the gamble of the draft, right? He's either going to be a superstar or he's going to be nothing. And it makes it even scarier because he landed with the Colts, where he could end up, playing with Anthony Richardson. He could end up being a superstar, stud, but they also don't really need him, right? They got Alec Pierce, who played his role just fine last year. I mean, he wasn't great, but he played fine. They're covered in the slot. They got Pittman on the outside. They've got like 20 tight ends, which, by the way, if we're going back to the Gardner Minshew, I believe that they targeted the tight end for the Colts 21% of the time last year, which is like 15. So it's middle of the road, but they don't have any real tight ends. They got like 4 guys that are just average tight ends. So Brock Bowers, Gardner Minshew connection right there. Just wanted to give props to Tyler on that one. So no, but Adonai Mitchell's a guy that if he's going to explode, he's going to have to play better than Alec Pierce, right? He's going to have to play better than Josh Downs. He's going to have to play better than Michael Pittman. So not only see a gamble in terms of his player profile and what we've seen on tape, which was him completely having the ultimate level of ADD that I don't think we've ever seen in an NFL player before, where he doesn't even know when the ball snapped because he loses concentration, loses focus. It's absolutely bizarre watching this film. It's like, ooh, squirrel. And then he's like, oh shit, I got to play football. No, but it's, he's a complete gamble in terms of his profile, in terms of his metrics, in terms of his play. And now he's going to a complete gamble of a situation. So Adonai Mitchell, I'm assuming that I have a pretty good team that needs to get me over the hump because I didn't have some superstar wide receivers to get me there if I'm drafting at 207. I think Adonai Mitchell is a calculated risk that you can take at that spot.
All right. I like it. Next up on the board, 2-8, Blake Corum, running back. 2-9, Jalen Wright, running back from Miami. 210, Marshawn Lloyd from Green Bay, running back. And then I had the 211. I went with Troy Franklin here. I feel like at this point in the draft at 211, you could take some more risk. And I think Troy Franklin's a big upside, low floor kind of player here. Skinny frame wide receiver, but he's got tremendous upside, speed. He's going to be playing with his former college quarterback with Bo Nix. The Broncos receiver core is pretty much wide open. And especially if they get rid of, Cortland Sutton, I mean, he could easily just jump in as the wide receiver 1 for this team. So there's a lot of upside in his game there, but obviously there's a lot of risk as well. That's why you don't take him in the early second round. He's more of a late second round pick here because, the floor play is there where he could kind of just phase out of the league pretty easily. He was a 4th round pick. It's not like he was in the top 2 round pick. He was in round 4. But the upside that he offers at this point in the draft is pretty good. So that's why I went with the 211. And then 212 went Jalen Polk, wide receiver out of New England. So, guys, let's talk about round 2 here. Are there anyone that you like to take in round 2? Someone that you're like, I'm going to avoid them in round 2? Anyone there? Chase, I'll let you start. We'll just go down the list.
Anyone that I'm going to avoid?
Yeah, would you avoid? Would you want to take anyone's who value is good, or if you kind of avoid if you could?
Trey Benson's a great value at 2.4. It's a brilliant value. I find him very close in comparison to Brooks. So, taking him, 4 or 5 picks later, especially if somebody takes Brooks early and you still get Trey Benson, similar, speed, size, they're very comparable players in terms of what we expect from them in the pros, and getting him so much later is amazing just because he has to sit behind James Conner for a year, maybe 2 years, is brilliant. I love Trey Benson at this location. And then Michael Penix is a stud, man. He's an absolute stud. And this is a guy that everybody loved in the fantasy community before the NFL started telling us that he was going to go in the second round. And as the NFL started telling us he was going in the second round, a lot more people got bearish on Michael Penix. And so he started dropping down draft boards. If the NFL never told us that he was going to go in the second round, I don't know that he wouldn't be ahead of Drake May to some extent and JJ McCarthy. Now it compounds with the issue of him being behind Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins is essentially on a 2-year contract. I mean, they can save $32.5 million by cutting him after 2 years. And when you talk about the $25 million dead cap, you can split that into 2 years and do $12.5 million per year. $12.5 million in dead cap is absolutely nothing. So Michael Penix, although it's not sexy, we're still talking about him having Drake London and, the team that he has around him going into Atlanta and potentially just destroying melting minds and having potentially one of the best, careers out of all these quarterbacks. Obviously that remains to be seen, but it's in the realm of possibilities. And to get a guy at the 2.5 at the quarterback position in a super flex league that could be the best player out of all these in terms of career wise, that's an absolute steal at the 2.5. I don't have Michael Penix making it past me at like the 2.2, 2.3, even if I'm stacked at quarterback. So Marshawn Lloyd's a fade. I don't like Marshawn in the second round. Josh Jacobs is still there. He's a workhorse back. They're talking about already getting the ball in his hands more than what he saw for Las Vegas because they want him involved with the receiving game. They're looking for that workhorse back. Aaron Jones wasn't able to do that. That's why they went out and got Josh Jacobs. So I don't see Marshawn Lloyd being a value there, and I just see his stock dropping too much to ever get that value back. I don't think that he's going to be worth anything. I think that you can get him in 2 years from now, and he'll probably be like the same price, if not less. I shouldn't say the same price. It's going to be less than what somebody would pay for him now.
Plus, people in the back range are contending teams. Like Marshawn Lynch just doesn't do anything for you. Like you want someone still that can help you produce, and I feel like Lloyd's not going to get enough opportunity unless there's an injury or two to get him to that spot.
Yeah, look what happened to AJ Dillon. He got, now he's looking at getting covered up. He was drafted in the back. He was behind Aaron Jones. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to be the next breakout. I said that. I was those people that said he's going to be the next dude, right? Like I'm sitting there. I'm like, yes, Aaron Jones' contract is up this year. And then he signs a new contract, and I'm like, yes, his contract's up again this year. And they get Josh Jacobs, and all of a sudden, AJ Dillon gives you pretty much nothing outside of a couple of good weeks in the playoffs. Back a couple of years ago. Yeah. Outside of that, AJ Dillon didn't give you anything.
That's fair. Coach Steve, anything you want to mention about round 2 here?
Yeah, I think Chase is right about Penix. He's definitely worth a shot in the middle of the second round, as he falls usually to the end of the second round. That's where I usually see him go. So I think that's a great pick. Like relative to the Marshawn Lloyd pick at the end of the second round, let's say he falls to the 210, which I do see Penix do fall. Like to Chase's point, if you're a contending team, it just makes so much more sense to just take that shot on Penix as opposed to Lloyd. And I like Lloyd a lot better at like the 302 or 303 than the 210, right? Like I'd rather, he makes much more sense in the mid third round. The running backs are interesting here. It's always going to be interesting to me to see where Brooks, Benson, and Corum go. I said last week that if you want to just wait and take the third, if you don't want to, like, if you say, hey, I don't need to trade up to get a guy, I can just kind of wait here in the back and just see which one of those falls to me. It's usually Corum, and I think that's okay. For me, Corum is my RB2 after the draft, and I love him at the 208. I think that's a great pick. Like, I would be super disappointed if I'm here at like 209 or I'm at 210 and I'm like, oh, Corum could get there, and I'm left with one of those guys. Corum is, to me, just in a great spot. He's just so perfect for the system. And Kyron was just never safe. And I think that a lot of people should have seen that. So now it's going to be more, he's going to eat into that workload, I think, pretty immediately. But besides that, I think pretty much everything is pretty straightforward here in the second round.
I like it. Coach Tyler, anything you want to mention?
I do want to say that on my pick, I was between Benson and Penix, and I just was able to justify Benson more at that spot. One guy I would like to see moved up in the second round, especially in comparison to some of those running backs, is Jalen Polk. We see
he's growing on me, man. He's made to me in the third round, and I didn't want to take him in any of the third round picks that I've had, because I've had like early third round picks. I normally trade up to get in that area, and I'll tell you what, Jalen Polk has grown on me post draft more than any other player has, and it's not even relatively close.
Yeah, he's a guy that I love. Obviously, watched him play at Texas Tech, wreck him. Watched him go to Washington and light it up there. Not this past season, but 2 seasons ago. And then even this season, as he was dealing with the injuries, he still looked the part, right? Obviously, it was one of the greatest passing attacks in the nation, but he has been a sufficient wide receiver in a great passing offense. And he walks into an offense in New England who's got a rookie quarterback in Drake May. The Patriots took him in round 2. I can't remember if they traded up or not, but they took him at the beginning of round 2. So they believed in him a lot more than a lot of people believed in him if you looked at how mock drafts played out and how people really reacted to that pick. But he's going to get paired up with Drake May, and I think that they are going to begin to be the future of the Patriots. Now, what that looks like, I don't know yet. But getting him here, he's at the 212 in our mock draft. I'm extremely happy taking a guy going into a situation with, honestly, not a ton of weapons around him, right? You've got Kendrick Bourne. You got Pop Douglas. I'm all right. I'm all right taking a shot in the dark in that receiver room, right? Someone's got to emerge as Drake May's favorite target. And I talked about, I keep talking about what Stroud and Tank Dell were as they were rookies that came in together, right? That rookie connection is something real. And so getting a second-round receiver lined up with the first-round quarterback, I just see the possibility of a perfect storm, and especially at the price that he's going at. We see him 212 here. Chase is saying he's getting him in the third, right? I'm happy to take a shot on him, and honestly, I would have moved him up, probably at least to the 2-9, if not earlier.
It's interesting, right, for the Patriots, because I believe, and I could be wrong on this, I believe the Patriots actually traded back 5 spots with the Chargers, right? The Chargers moved up to grab Ladd and McConkey, and Patriots moved back a few spots. Dude, how many times in the Bill Belichick era would they have pulled the trigger on Ladd McConkey, a white slot receiver, instead of going with, moving back, taking an exterior receiver with deep threat capabilities, in the draft, which I don't know that we've ever seen that out of the Patriots over the past, 20 years. So this could show us a little bit about where this Patriots regime, is drifting towards, and could be a good thing. We'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, from basing off my ADP, because I like to look at my ADP, I think I'm special. It's pretty similar, to be honest. Like through these first 2 rounds, basically every player is gone to some extent, 1 or 2 picks away from what they've been going, and this is what you're going to see in your rookie drafts if you haven't done it yet. For the most part, like what you're looking at is exactly how a lot of rookie drafts are going to go. Marshall Lloyd goes in the 3rd in my ADP. Roman Wilson kind of jumps into round 2, but this is what you're going to see here. There's a lot of good players still. The quarterback like values you're getting with Penix and Nix is nice. You have a lot of running backs that like have potential to do something to some extent, and then a lot of wide receivers that I think you could say there's upside for all these wide receivers to some extent to make some noise as a rookie or at least year 2. And again, the value is still good in a lot of these wide receivers here. So, all right, into round 3 now. Starting it off with Sanders from the Carolina Panthers, tight end. He goes at the 3-1. And then, Coach Steve, you have 3-2. Would you go with the 3-2? Because I love this pick.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton. I think Ben Sinnott right there. I was between both of those. I think Sinnott would have been a great pick there in early 3rd round. And he's definitely over Sanders for me. So it would have just been nice getting that over a tight end that I don't think is better. Think kind of George Kittle. I mean, when he has the ball in his hand, he's a monster. So I like Sinnott for his future. Let's see how long that takes. But Burton, to me, it just seems like he's going to fit right in with this Bengals offense. 2 times in his college career, he averaged over 19 yards per reception. So he's a big play guy, and you can get him in the 3rd round. Like I like Keon Coleman a lot, but he might give you more production than Keon Coleman in the next 5 years. I mean, I think he has the chance because we know T. Higgins. I mean, the writing's been on the wall. I would be so surprised if T. Higgins just remains with the Bengals for the next few years, right? I mean, it's not going to happen. He's gone. And when you look at this Bengals wide receiver room, it's not very intimidating for someone who's coming in, big play guy. Burrow's going to be healthy. Let's see that deep ball a little bit more. Obviously, Chase demands double teams. You think that Burton can run free. So I think he's a big play guy in an offense where he's going to have opportunity.
All right. I like it. I like that a lot there. I like Burton a lot. I've been getting him in many of my 3rd rounds. Next pick here, the 3-3, Ben Sinakos, the tight end from the Commanders. And then Coach Tyler, you have the 3-4 here. Another player that I really like a lot. Go ahead.
I'm also going to jump guess and tell you that you're going to pick Javon Baker here because I know that you love him. It was between McMillan and him. I really didn't think he'd make it to you. But, I was looking at the queue coming up as we were talking through the end of the 2nd round, and Ben Sinnott was right there. He was almost in my hands. Y'all know how much I love Ben Sinnott. This is my guy this draft, especially in the 3rd round. Love him. But I went with Jalen McMillan going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. McMillan, we just talked about Jalen Polk and how he was dealing with injuries this past season. And the person that took his spot in that Washington receiving room while he was out was Jalen McMillan, right? 6'1", just under 200 pounds. So he's got good size to him. The Bucs are a team that we really don't know what their receiver room is going to look like in 2 years, right? Mike Evans is getting up there in age. And honestly, the second that he finishes with 999 yards in the season, I'm sure they ship him out of there as quick as they can. But, there's been talks of Chris Godwin not getting extended, Chris Godwin being on the move. Chris Godwin he's younger than Evans, but he's not, 24 years old. And then we see Mike Evans is up there over the 30 hump now. And there's just going to be a lot of questions of what this offense could look like. And I think that the second that one of these top 2 receivers isn't performing or isn't being who they're supposed to be, I think McMillan is able to slot in to at least that number 2, if not be the future number 1 for this team. Now, they are running with Baker Mayfield on a shorter contract right now. So it's not the greatest view quarterback-wise for the future. Obviously not bad for the near future, but, if you're looking going into a second contract, we don't know what the quarterback play in Tampa Bay is going to be. But, sitting here at the almost middle of the 3rd round, I'm getting a guy that has a chance to at least go be the wide receiver 2 on his team, if not the wide receiver 1. depending on how everything plays out. I love the pick, right? McMillan produced, like we talked about, and the best passing attack in the nation. And he is a guy that has consistently gotten better throughout his college years. And so I think that being able to grab him here at the 3-4, obviously he's not the guy that I had my eyes on, but he's a guy that I'm very happy taking at this spot.
I think it's interesting too, because they talked about moving Chris Godwin back to the slot, which is where Trey Palmer played last year. Last year, Chris Godwin played on the outside. He's far better in the slot. And McMillan actually fills in better on the outside. So that'll be interesting to watch.
I hope that's the case. Following that pick there, Allen, running back out of the Jets, went off the board here. Bucky Irving went at the next pick, the 2-6, and at the 3-6, and at the 3-7, Chase, what do you got here at 3-7?
This is tough because, Wilson's a big guy that everybody loves, in this draft. And I can't believe he fell to 3-7, but I wanted to go with my guy, which is Mekhi Corley. This dude is like a bulldog essentially with his build. And when we talk about, his ability to make plays, with the ball in his hands, his ability to get open, it's massive, right? But the bigger aspect here is, hey, who did Aaron Rodgers love throwing to in the slot? Randall Cobb, baby. And Corley is a bigger version of Randall Cobb in terms of his ability to make plays with the ball in his hands, the position that he's in, and what he can make happen. I think that Corley offers a tremendous amount of upside, as we haven't, we've seen Mike Williams unable to stay healthy, right? He'll have to compete for targets with Breece Hall and with Garrett Wilson, but Mekhi Corley is in a tremendous position moving forward. The only thing that scares me is what happens after Aaron Rodgers, because obviously they don't have too much of a contingency plan if Aaron goes down again, or if he ends up retiring after this year.
Back to the good old days for the Jets, hopefully in a couple years, as a bottom tier team. Following the next pick here, 3-8, Romo Wilson off the board here. 3-9, Theo Johnson, tight end of the Giants. 3-10, Eric All, tight end to the Bengals. These guys have been rising in the last few of my drafts, so I'm not that surprised. And then Javon Baker, like Coach Tyler just predicted for me, I took him at the 3-11 here. Again, I've been another player that I've been really liked throughout this draft process here. Loved what I was able to watch on film. I like him with the Patriots. He's an opportunity to be able to play on the outside as the X wide receiver for this team here, a team that desperately needs some kind of consistent weapons on this offense here that they really haven't had in years, or they haven't need to have in years, because they've always had Tom Brady. But Baker has a big opportunity here. Again, he's someone who kind of fluctuates throughout the third round, but getting him here at 3-11, I love it. So, and then to finish off the third round, Jordan Travis, quarterback at the New York Jets, goes at the 3-12. So, guys, third round real quick here. Anyone else you want to mention here? Anyone that you don't like in the third round? Anyone you like in the third round? Chase?
Yeah, this is where it gets kind of spotty, right? You got to go get your guy. And, I don't think Senate should have lasted this long. We talk about a organization, right? Organizational philosophy that operates out of a tight end that can do everything. But, big thing is breaking tackles and making plays. Then you talk about a head coach that has had good tight ends pretty much everywhere that he's went. And then you talk about an offensive coordinator that's absolutely obsessed with tight ends, right? Don't forget, Cliff Kingsbury went out and drafted, what's his name? Drawing a blank right now. The Arizona tight end currently, right?
Trey McBride.
Trey McBride, right? Sorry. And then he ended up going and acquiring, Ertz, right? When Ertz left the Eagles. So, he loves his tight ends. He likes to bring his tight ends along. So I don't expect Ben Sinnott to come out and crush it this year. He actually has, I think, Ertz in front of him right now. So he might have to wait a year before he's able to get his shot at it. But he utilizes the tight ends in multiple different facets throughout his offense. And I think that Sinnott is an absolute steal in the third round. I think that he should have been probably a mid to late second round pick. He's right around the, Adonai Mitchell, probably right after that pick is where I would have taken him.
Agreed.
Outside of that, there's a bunch of random tight ends. And Jordan Travis is too early. Jordan
Yes.
Travis is a developmental prospect. And
Way
then,
too early.
Yeah, it just kind of becomes a hodgepodge. There's a few different guys that I'll talk about here in the next round that I think probably should have gone in the third round for me.
All right. Coach Steve, anything you want to mention about the third round?
I think Corley fell to a great spot. That was the pick of the third round because he's usually going above Burton, above McMillan. Like, so yeah, you're getting great value with Corley there.
All right. Coach Tyler, anything you want to mention about this round?
One pick that I kind of like is Bucky Irving right there in the middle at 3-6. Rachaad White obviously beginning to come into his own. But we saw Dave Canales leave to go take the head coaching job with the Panthers. And then, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Rams offensive coordinator who has now taken over for the OC job with Tampa Bay. If I'm not wrong. If not, it's like the passing game or run game coordinator or someone with LA, right? And when we talked last week about the Rams and their running backs, everyone likes to think that they have one running back and pigeonhole that one guy. And then it turns out that they've got 2 or 3 guys in the stable that they're running. And so as much as people want Rachaad White to be the bell cow guy, Bucky Irving is a fantastic change of pace running back. And I think that he has the opportunity to be utilized, if not anything else than that change of pace. But that's going to eat into Rachaad White. And one thing that Bucky Irving exemplified very well was his receiving ability. And if you're in a PPR league and you're really hoping Rachaad White's just getting all those dump offs from Baker, you might lose out on a decent amount of points because Bucky Irving's going to be right there trying to get in on those reps. And so I think Bucky Irving at 3-6, I kind of like that range for him. I could have seen him go later and been happy. Could have seen him, I don't know if I would have seen him go earlier and be happy, possibly over Braylon Allen. But Bucky Irving there at the 3-6, that's a spot that I really like to take that shot.
I like it. I actually seen him go undrafted in one of my leagues. So that was fun to see. But I had an early third round pick. That was my last pick. So I can't wait to get him in free agency. But yeah, the third round here is a lot of fun players to go after. Usually those tight ends don't usually go in the third round, but they have been more exciting for a lot of people in my rookie drafts. In this sleeper rookie draft, there's always these tight ends that just seem to go, even though this is not tight end premium. But there's definitely a lot of tight ends that go off the board in sleepers ADP sometimes here. But third round's pretty solid overall. You can't complain with any of these players that you want to go get because they all have some kind of upside. And again, they're cheaper now. So, and then into round 4 here, we'll finish this up for the night here. Will Shipley goes at the 4-1. And Coach Steve, you have one of my other favorite players in this draft here. At the running back position here, go ahead and talk about your player at the 4-2.
Yeah, you were ahead of me in our rookie draft, and I was able to rule out Vidal. Like, it was nice to know that I knew he was not going to make it to me no matter what. So I was like, all right, let me just look at everyone else, not even consider him. And of course you took him. So it was like, I didn't have to be like disappointed, nothing like that. That was great. Look, this is Harbaugh's first running back that he's drafting with this regime, right? So that it might not materialize. He's a 6th round pick, but we're in the 4th round of a rookie draft. All of these guys are flyers. We're obviously at a run of running backs right now, and any of these guys you want to take a shot on, you can make a case for. Kamani, he's a small, stout running back. He's fast, and he has great burst. And, we really just don't know what's going to be with this running back core. I don't even know like if Isaiah Spiller or Josh Kelly are going to make this team. I know that Gus Edwards is really the safest guy. And then you got J.K. Dobbins, who just had a sprained ankle last year, I guess, based on what he said. And so I think that Vidal could eventually carve out a role. You might be waiting for a long time. It could be a completely wasted pick, but at least you can see a path. And then you know that this team wants to run the ball. So I think it is worth a shot here in the 4th round.
I like it. Following that, the 4-3 STN, Denver Broncos running back off the board. 4-4 Isaiah Goriallo. Can't say his name for my life, but running back out of the 49ers. Oh, that was Coach Tyler's pick. My bad. Coach Tyler, that was your pick. Go ahead, talk about that pick there.
Yeah, Isaac Garindo. we're in the spot in the fourth where, you're really grabbing at straws and hoping that you hit, right? And I got a running back going to the 49ers. Great spot for any running back to be, right? Obviously, we're going to be sitting behind Christian McCaffrey. There's just no doubt about that unless he does get injured, which he hasn't looked like Carolina Christian McCaffrey since he got to San Francisco. But behind Christian McCaffrey, it looks like the fourth round of a fantasy rookie draft right here. We've got Elijah Mitchell, who at times has flashed, but he's also, you put him on the field for more than 2 snaps and he's out for 6 weeks. You've got Jordan Mason, Patrick Taylor, right? You got a whole bunch of guys that the 49ers have just drafted and they're not going to cut them because they have the space on their roster, right? And Garindo walks in. He's been a big, you watch any fantasy sleeper video, you watch all these, guys you should add on the waivers after the draft if you only have 3 rounds. And he's going to be a name that constantly pops up, right? 6 foot, 221, ran a 4.33. So we've got great size. We've got fantastic speed. And, he was a big home run player with Louisville. Now, obviously, he was playing at Louisville in the ACC. I'm not going to say he's playing against the greatest competition defensively, but this is a guy that if I'm grasping for straws here, he is in a position to be behind, only the best running back in football. And I think that he could beat out everyone else that's in that running back room that's not named Christian McCaffrey. And he walks into a Shanahan offense where as McCaffrey gets older, we're honestly going to start to see those snaps decrease little by little. And in that, having the guy that is taking those snaps is going to be a very valuable piece, especially if he can use that speed to hit a home run every once in a while, right? I think he's definitely going to be a DFS, legend for a couple weeks. But if I'm just looking at the fourth round and I can get someone with his profile, with his size and his speed and his landing spot, I'm very happy taking him here at the fourth.
I like it. Following those picks, a couple tight ends off the board. Bell from the Patriots, Stover from the Texans, and Coach Chase, you got us a wide receiver here at the 4-7.
Yeah, I mean, there's zero reason to me why Tez Walker should be there. He's a 3rd round pick pretty easily, like late 3rd round. I mean, we talk about a guy that can literally just waltz in, to a starting role in year 1, although he is a 4th round pick. It's Tez Walker, man. I mean, this guy had 50 or 16, I think, yards per reception in college, 17 yards per reception in college, 24 yards per reception in college. He ended up having, I think, 7 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns in his final 2 years. I mean, this dude was a phenomenal player, and his measurements or his metrics showed, right, from the combine. I mean, he tests in the top percentile for multiple different levels. Let's see, we got 97th percentile 40-yard dash, right, with an 89th percentile speed score. He's got a 97th percentile burst score, 95th percentile catch radius. He was 78th percentile college target share with 26%. He had a 43.3% college dominator rating, which was 89th percentile. Now, he's 6'2", 193, so he's a little bit on the lighter side. But we talk about a guy who can't stay healthy in Rashad Bateman and who's underwhelmed probably more than any wide receiver. We've seen recent memory in Rashad Bateman. We talk about, Odell Beckham leaving, still needing to pass the ball, and Tez Walker walks into a role that not only fits him, right, but he could also excel in and see more targets than what we expect from a lot of these wide receivers as rookies. So I absolutely love Tez Walker. I think he's going to be a monster up there in a high scoring offense that we expect to be at the top of the league every single week, run primarily behind Derrick Henry. When you have Derrick Henry right there, you got to stack the box. So you better believe that Tez Walker, if he does earn that starting role, is going to see a lot of one-on-one, man coverage where he's going to get the opportunity to beat his defender deep, and he's more than capable of doing that. So I think that Tez Walker is an absolute steal at this point in the draft. I was between him and one other player, but I was like, I can't just let him sit here. I cannot leave him. I mean, especially after that IG video that he put up on his story the other day. Like you can't leave that guy. You can't leave that dude. He's that dude. You can't leave that dude, to go undrafted or leave him to not be a 4th round pick.
That's fair. I like Tez Walker a lot too. Unfortunately, I was so busy trying to do other things that I did not make my pick. So I went with Dylan Loeb, the running back out of the Raiders. So that wasn't my pick, but definitely
what was your pick?
Well, I probably, if what was left on the board and who didn't go, I probably would have took Spencer Rattler at that point.
He was off the board.
Was he? No, he wasn't. Was he?
Yeah, it was 4-8.
Oh, it was? Oh, okay. That's my fault. Spencer
He was
Rattler
my 4th round value right there.
I probably would have took Tyrone Tracy, running back of the Giants. I feel like he's just a bigger back that has an opportunity to kind of come in here and show some work early on. I mean, Devin Singletary is just a guy who's decent, but the Giants need to find some more playmakers in the offense, and Devin Singletary doesn't scream playmaker. He screams get you 4 yards of carry, and that's really it. And then, again, they have Eric Gray, and they have – I don't know who else is even in that backfield at this point, but the backfield's very bad. And Tracy has an opportunity to kind of come in and take hold of this backfield, year one. I mean, Devin Singletary didn't get the bag to go to the Giants, and he's not a young guy anymore. So the backfield is wide open. Again, a couple other guys that were on there. I mean, Luke McCaffrey would have took a shot on him. Brendan Rice, I would have took a shot on him at that point. He kind of goes a little early in drafts for me personally, but he's someone in late 4th round. It's not a bad play. Is there anyone else you guys want to mention in round 4 that you guys like to take or whatnot?
So
I'd definitely say,
yeah.
You got Steve.
I'm just saying, I don't think Luke McCaffrey got drafted.
No,
that's crazy.
That's pretty. Yeah, so that's ridiculous in itself because he goes in the 3rd round, and I could have taken him easily at the 402. And one guy I just want to mention besides McCaffrey, Cade Stover. Could be a really good pick for at this point in the draft. You especially with the tight ends that go ahead. Played with C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, was really productive with them. And obviously Dalton Schultz, he's the guy now. But for me, this really kind of because I like Brevin Jordan a good bit. This kind of gives me question marks for Brevin Jordan in Dynasty more than anything. So I think that Cade Stover is worth a pick here. But for Chase, I feel like at the 207, 307, 407, every time you just kind of let really prolific wide receivers fall to you that could be boom or bust, and if one of those 3 hits, you're happy.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, there's one dude that needs to be drafted every time. Actually, you know what? I'll let Tyler go first because I went first on probably the previous 3 rounds every time.
Really
go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah. So my value that I already mentioned, Spencer Rattler there at the 4-8. Especially a super flex quarterback means a lot, and he's going to a situation where he's playing behind a quarterback. It's really not all that good, and there's a lot of questions for the future of New Orleans, right? Because I don't think Derek Carr is the quarterback of the future there. Alvin Kamara is getting up there in age. Michael Thomas has been non-existent since he, set the world on fire. And so you've got Chris Olave, you've got maybe Kendre Miller, and you've got this team that's kind of going to be searching for an identity and seeing what they can do with either Dennis Allen, or if Dennis Allen is gone, then whoever the next head coach is, maybe Sean Payton will come back. But Spencer Rattler is in a position, he's going to walk in as the backup. But I think that Derek Carr is going to be on a real short leash, especially now that there's a guy that's up there that can compete with him, that's not, playing tight end every other play like Taysom Hill. And so I think Spencer Rattler there, we saw him mature a lot after he transferred out of Oklahoma. Obviously, there's all the talk of his reality show that he did when he was in high school, QB1. It was honestly a fun show to watch. I remember watching it when I was, in high school and college. But I think that a lot of those attitude problems have changed. I think he got brought down to earth a lot with that transfer and with Caleb Williams kind of taking his spot there. And so I think that humbled him, and we saw him become not only, better as a human, but a better player as he got to South Carolina and began to work on a lot of things. So I think that him at the 4.8, especially in Superflex, is a great spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's one guy for me that's complete steal. Outside of Tez Walker, the other guy that I was between, and that's Ray Davis, man. Ray Davis is a freaking bowling ball, right? He's like 5'8", 211 pounds, and this dude just runs like angry, right? Like he's just pissed off when he runs. He's a pissed off teenager, just like going through the line, stomping his feet and pushing people around. And I mean, like he's going to an offense where he automatically is already slotted in as the secondary running back. We talk about James Cook, right? James Cook is not a goal line back. He's not a red zone threat. He's not getting carries on the goal line. I think that he was 22nd in red zone touches overall, which we know the Bills are in the red zone all the freaking time, and yet he barely touched the ball in the red zone. So as we sit there, we try to envision what they want this offense to look like. I'm sure that they're starting to want to pull Josh Allen off of running the ball, close to the goal line. At least you would hope so. If you have Josh Allen in Dynasty, it's great for one or two plays, but the way that he runs is just, it's not the smartest, way to keep yourself healthy. So I think that Ray Davis should see a handful of goal line touches, and although that's hard to bet on, and you never really want to bet on that in fantasy football, as a 4th round pick, if he ends up taking that, I mean, that's gold for some weeks where you can, plug and play. Is he ever going to be a starter, like full-time starter? Probably not, but could he have that Jamal Williams type role that we saw with Detroit a couple of years ago? I think that's 100% in the realm of possibilities where we could see him have a season of 10 plus touchdowns, 20 touchdowns. Well, maybe not 20. I might be exaggerating a little bit on 20. We'll say 15 just to stretch the limit a little bit.
And you said he runs like an angry teenager. The problem is he's 25 years old.
He is. He's
super old. Yeah.
He is old. He's very old. But the thing is you only need, with running backs, it's only a couple of years that you need from them anyways before they end up depreciating value. So you want to dump them after that. You get a good season out of Ray Davis. Nobody even pays attention to his age, right? Because they see like the Raheem Mosterts, even Jamal Williams, who broke out a little bit, right, later in terms of that. And they don't care because it's not about your athletic ability when you're a goal line back. It's how much of a pissed off teenager you can be and how big of a temper tantrum you can throw trying to get into that end zone.
Ray Davis reclaiming his youth with every run.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that Dameon Pierce is going to be valuable in like 8 years? That's all I'm hearing right here.
I mean, if the Texans wanted to utilize him, he probably could still be goal line back, but the Texans don't need to utilize that. They've got Dalton Schultz, they got Nico Collins on the outside, so they can throw the ball and be fine. I don't think that the Bills have a red zone threat outside of Dalton Kincaid and Josh Allen with his legs to where you're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to throw it up and let him go get it, right? There's not a jump ball receiver on that team right now. There's not a guy who you can count on to get into the end zone. And so I think that they're going to have to utilize Ray Davis over the next year or two, to carry that workhorse role inside of the 5. So I'm cool. Like it's a lottery shot at this point. I think that Ray Davis should never go undrafted.
100%. I agree with that completely.
I agree. Yep. All right. Well, that is going to wrap us up for the night, guys. That was a fun mock draft there. A lot of fun. Wish the 4th round didn't get messed up with all those tight ends and quarterbacks like Sam Hart going off the board for some reason. But maybe Sleeper knows something we don't. But Coach Chase, obviously, you were a fantastic fill-in coach for the day. We love having you on the show as always. Is there anything you want to mention you got going on? I'll give you the floor, my friend.
No, man. Just, if you got leagues that you got to buy trophies for, come see me, right? Trophy Smack. We got epic trophies, chains. If you're watching the show right now, it's not a podcast. You can see all of it behind me, all the epic hardware we have. Oh, you got a ring right there. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. So, yeah, we got all sorts of fun stuff, and it's kind of crazy, right? Because you think that you could have everything that you need, for fantasy football, and then you end up realizing that we haven't stopped. Like, we're still going and creating new shit every single day that's just as badass as the first day we came out. So, keep an eye on us. We got these new light up ring boxes. We got all sorts of stuff that's happening.
That's cool. That's cool. Definitely head over there. Get yourself some shiny stuff. So, who wants to go next? Coach Tyler, Coach Steve, who wants to go next?
I got it because I'm unmuted. I'll let Steve stay muted for a second. We didn't do our ad read today. Go check out dynastynerds.com. Use code COACH. this is the time of year as we're going through this. We're still putting out mock drafts over there. We're still going through pre-post draft, all that stuff. We've still got the film room. I use the film room to analyze a lot of 2025 recruits already, or 2025 prospects already, because I'm trading out of some of my 2024 first to go get those guys. And so use that film room, use the Dynasty GM as I'm making those trades, use those values on there on those trade charts, how those guys look for both contender mode this year and Dynasty mode for the foreseeable future. Go dynastynerds.com, use code coach.
I like it. Coach Steve.
Yeah, no, it was a fun rookie draft. Just hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions. Happy to talk fantasy football.
Yeah, awesome. So we appreciate y'all for turning in, whether it's live on our YouTube channel or if you're listening afterwards, Spotify podcast, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate it as always here. We just love helping you guys try to win championships, whether it's starting with the rookie drafts, trades, free agencies, whatever it may be here. We're here to help you guys out as much as possible here. So we thank you all for listening. We'll be back next Monday. We'll be talking about the veterans. We'll get into the veteran side of things and what kind of impact the rookies made on some veterans. So until then, guys, thank you all for listening. Tune in until next time, everyone, and have a good one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark hands.